Today, we're talking about the incredible life of Shin Young-kyun, an absolute giant of South Korean cinema. But his story isn't just about what he did on the silver screen. It's a really powerful story about faith, family, and an act of generosity so big it's hard to even wrap your head around.
So let's just start with this number, 50 billion won. In US dollars, that's about $40 million. Back in 2010, after a lifetime of success, Shin Young-kyun just gave it all away. So the question is, where did all that money even come from?
Well, this wasn't some corporate fund or a publicity stunt. This was his personal fortune, money he earned over decades. We're talking about major properties, including the legendary Myeongbo Theater right in the heart of Seoul. And he gave it all back to the very industry that made him who he was.
And that really brings us to the core of this whole thing. You don't just wake up one day and decide to do something like that. An act of this size is the result of a whole life lived in a certain way. So what kind of life builds a person capable of giving everything away?
To figure that out, you have to go back to the beginning, to his pretty unlikely journey. Because long before anyone knew his name, Shin Young-kyun was headed down a very, very different path. So here's the choice he was facing. On one hand, you've got the life of a dentist. He graduated from the top university, Seoul National University. It was stable, it was respected, a totally secure profession. But on the other side was his real passion, acting. A life on stage which was, a total gamble, an uncertain dream. For a while, he actually did both. He'd run his dental clinic during the day and then race to the theater to perform at night.
But in 1960, he made the leap. He went all in on acting, with his film debut in The Widow. And boy, did it pay off. His rise was just meteoric. By 1962, with the classic Prince Yeonsan, he was a massive star. And then just 2 years after that, he led the blockbuster Red Muffler. That movie made him a true national icon. He became the face of the heroic fighter pilot for a whole generation.
But his success wasn't just about being charismatic on screen. The guy's work ethic was legendary. In an era where a lot of actors didn't really bother, he memorized every single line for every one of his 300-plus movies. He just believed that an actor who really owns the words gives a fundamentally different, better performance. His dedication was just on another level.
In that dedication, it often meant putting himself in real physical danger. See, filmmaking back then was a raw business. There were no stunt doubles. He tells this story about a scene where he had to get thrown into a freezing cold river. His wife was so worried, she stayed up the entire night before, sewing him a makeshift waterproof suit out of vinyl to wear under his costume. That's the kind of commitment that defined his career. But what defined his character?
And this gets to the absolute core of who he was. To really get why he did what he did, you have to understand the incredible influence of his faith. It was the foundation for everything, and it was laid long before he ever saw a movie camera.
Shin Young-kyun's story doesn't start with fame and fortune. It starts with real hardship. When he was young, his father passed away. He and his mother had to flee their home in what's now North Korea, and they came to Seoul as refugees with literally nothing. That experience of starting with zero completely shaped how he saw money and life.
The one thing they did bring with them, though, was their faith. He gives all the credit to his mom. He says she was a woman who lived her entire life in prayer, and it was through her incredible devotion that he found the faith that would guide him for the rest of his life.
And this wasn't some casual thing. It was a set of rules they lived by. For the Shin family, going to church on Sunday was mandatory, no exceptions. He was so dedicated to his family that he had a special clause put in his movie contracts that said wherever he went to film, his family had to be allowed to come with him. You would literally see them having a picnic on the side of the set.
He draws a straight line from his faith to his career success. The entertainment world can be a pretty wild place, but he stayed away from all the drinking and partying. He genuinely believed that living a clean life, guided by his beliefs, was the very reason he was able to succeed and keep his integrity intact. Okay, so now that we have this picture of the man, his past, his work ethic, his principles, we can go back to that enormous donation. And you start to see it wasn't just some random act, but the most logical conclusion to the way he lived his entire life.
And get this, it was a total family decision. By 2010, he'd already given a lot of his fortune to his kids. But when he went to them with this idea, to give it all away to start a foundation, they all agreed, unanimously. It's pretty clear the values he lived by were passed right on to the next generation.
So the foundation he built is his living legacy. It's not just his name on some building. A huge chunk of what they do goes to the Beautiful Artist Awards, which honors artists for both their talent and their character. They also run film camps for kids, give out scholarships, and support all kinds of cultural projects. It's all about nurturing the future of the industry he loves so much.
And he's not just a figurehead, not even close. Even today, at 96 years old, people call him forever in active duty because he literally shows up to the office every single day. For the foundation's big annual awards show, he's personally checking everything, from the seating charts to the program notes. His commitment is for life.
And all of this brings us to the final, and maybe the most powerful part of his story, his own ideas about what really matters when all is said and done.
He told his children, after a life filled with fame and wealth and awards, when his time comes, he doesn't want any of that stuff with him. He wants one thing, and one thing only, placed in his coffin, a single Bible.
This really gets to the heart of how he sees the world. He says it all the time, I came empty-handed and will go empty-handed. He knows you can't take material things with you. But he doesn't feel like he's leaving with nothing. Because in his mind, since he found his faith, what he calls the Word, he feels like he's gained everything that actually matters.
So, in the end, the story of Shin Young-kyun kind of leaves us all with a pretty big question. In a world that's always telling us to measure success by what we own and accumulate, his life offers a totally different way to look at it, a way that's based on what we build, what we believe in, and ultimately what we're willing to give away. It kind of makes you ask yourself, what is the true measure of a life well lived?